Welcome to the Warning Track Power Hour. I am Dr. Andrew Scaff. He is Dr. Michael Werman, Esquire. Don't forget that. This week, we're going to get into our NFL preview for next week. We'll talk a little bit about the Royals and their offseason pickups, as well as the massive Shohei Ohtani $700 million contract. But we'll lead off today's episode with a lot of the controversies, I guess, in the NFL's Week 14. It seems like most everyone post, conclusion of the week has been talking a lot about the officiating and all of the crazy upsets. Mike, did you enjoy this week, or did you find it very frustrating to watch as a fan, as a bettor, and as a rule interpreter, as an attorney now?
Well, I found it for the Tommy DeVito the molto bene. I found it frustrating mainly as a Chiefs fan, given the fact that they've had so many problems with their wide receiver core and dropping passes and offensive penalties and things like that, and this was looking at the footage of Kadarius Toney, he is technically offsides, but this is one of those things where usually, and I think there has been footage of Toney looking to the officials, and maybe not, maybe he didn't wait long enough for them to tell him or whatever, but it seems like this is something that is rarely, if ever, called, and it's something that is usually given a warning or two first. It's a little bit like the team on the sideline getting too close to the field. They get a warning first, and it's not, defensive offsides is very common to be called, but I think offensive, unless it's like they say it was egregious, but it wasn't really. His toe was a little bit over maybe, and it was we don't know exactly where it was when the center had the ball originally. We know where it was when he kind of pulled it back to start, but it was, I don't know, it was inconsequential to the play. I guess Toney did catch the lateral from Kelsey, which was an amazing play, but I don't think if he had been an inch farther back, it would have affected anything. So
No.
And this is something that happens, like, Tyreek Hill and the Dolphins was just offsides in the exact same way, but it wasn't called. So it's one of those things where it's like a little bit like, I think I heard somebody on one of the NFL pundits say, like, it's a little bit like speeding. Technically, if you're going a mile over, you're committing a crime, but it never gets called. Or if you do get pulled over, it's something that gets a warning before a ticket. So
right.
I saw the flag fly like before the play, so I was kind of expecting the worst. So even I couldn't really be happy about the Kelsey to Toney, the Mahomes long pass to Kelsey lateral, long lateral, and then the Toney's.
It was a full-on pass. I mean, it was a lateral form, right? Because it was it was a
overhand.
Yeah.
Very similar to, but actually went backwards, unlike the famous what was it Memphis Miracle? Was that when the Titans were still playing in Memphis? I think it was. Frank Wycheck, who actually died over the weekend. I think he had a fall in his home or something.
Yeah.
That pass was obviously forward, but they counted it as a lateral, and the Titans won that game. But this one was it was great, but I couldn't appreciate it. So I just was expecting the worst, and the worst occurred, and then the Chiefs were inept in the next three plays, and that was it. But they lost to the Bills. But it was frustrating to watch.
And what's really surprising about that particular type of penalty, which is very rarely called anyway, is that that they go ahead with the play. It's not blown dead before the play happens, so that we know what the result of the play was, and it was spectacular. And then that highlight never happened, because even though we saw it, but now it didn't happen. So it's very frustrating as a fan and as a to have it nullified and take points off the board then too, which we saw go onto the board just to be taken off for something that's so
Yeah.
seemingly nothing, not advantageous,
Mhm.
event happening that give Tony an advantage, something that there was none. So
You, mhm. You
that's
wonder why.
really frustrating as a fan, at least, to see it.
Yeah, you wonder why some offensive penalties are like before the snap, pre-snap, are they stop the play. Like a false start, they stop the play.
Mm.
But illegal formation, they don't. And like certain other illegal shift, they don't. Which is strange to me. Why don't they just all? Because like it why don't they stop all of the movement slash lining up penalties before they happen? If it's pre-snap, why not stop it? The only thing that they let usually slide pre-snap is a defensive offsides, uh,
Right.
which is something that he thinks most quarterbacks like to have. I don't know if any defenses like the idea of let's play anyway on this play because we know a guy's offside. So does that just mean we can you know wail on a guy harder or so it doesn't make much sense why like a pre-snap any pre-snap penalty is not stopped beforehand if it's on the offense because that's a it just creates it's another chance for injury if you know there's a penalty of that sort. Why make them play the play unless it's I think unless it happens during the play, which I guess they think offsides happens during the play rather than before the play.
Hmm.
I'm not sure.
Because sometimes you can have like neutral zone infractions where you can still like get back to the line before the snap happens.
Yeah,
And so it's like kind of up to the quarterback and center to sort of like decide if they want to try to snap it quick enough to like catch the guy offsides and get a free play,
or
or
move and turn
blow
it
the play dead so that
a
they.
false start into a offsides or something. It's strange. I think it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I don't think the call made a whole lot of sense. It was a Carl Cheffers decision, and we know the Chiefs and Carl Cheffers do not always see eye to eye, even though he was the referee during the Super Bowl for Super Bowl 57. But historically, he has been very bad for the Chiefs, and the Chiefs have not cared for his work. Famously, Travis Kelce said that he shouldn't even work at Foot Locker after a loss to the Steelers in a wild card game several years ago. I remember that game. It wasn't the worst officiating the Chiefs have had in the playoffs. I think the Jeff Triplett uh, Tennessee Titans game was worse. Uh, those sacks that were called off because uh, forward progress was stopped, even though like he was just being tackled. It wasn't like and he dropped the ball. So
Yeah.
I'm getting off a little off.
It wasn't. It may not have even been the worst Cheffers game either. The
Super Bowl was pretty bad.
Super Bowl was pretty bad, but also he was the AFC Championship game against the Bucks too, wasn't he?
He was the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay. He was
Super Bowl against Tampa. That was it. Yeah.
Super Bowl
Oh,
50.
I was thinking. No, yeah, no. I was thinking of the New England AFC Championship game. That wasn't him, though. I don't think.
Yeah, and you wonder why Jeffers gets the Super Bowl 2 out of 3 years. I don't think he's. I don't know. It's the way they grade the officials doesn't seem to be very good either in the NFL. They think this is the
Yeah.
best guys. I know. I think they just need a real overhaul, especially because I think even though I think it's more incompetence than corruption, it has that kind of whiff of corruption because the NFL and legalized gambling have become more and more entwined over the last couple of years. So it's
Like fully integrated into into like the sports sites, even like ESPN now has its own betting
mhm.
app, and they show like the odds on the games like in like the sports recaps and everything too. So it's like it's really fully integrated into sports and the league at this point,
Yeah, this is
especially now having a team situated in Las Vegas, then too, the betting capital of the U.S.
Yeah, and so the last two games of the Chiefs really have been decided by a call, um, a no call on an obvious penalty, and then a call on a maybe dubious penalty, we could say, that it was at least called, that this isn't usually called. I think it was the first time in 25,000 plus offensive plays of Andy Reid's career that
Yeah.
offsides has been called, and I don't think that's. I would guess that Tony was not the most offsides of anybody in those 25,000
Probably.
plays. So, but I don't know. That's the way the game was called. The Chiefs still kind of remarkably are in the hunt still for the number one seed. The Baltimore Ravens, who kind of survived a miraculous game against the Rams, didn't look particularly good, and they have some tough games. I think they play at Miami still, and they play San Francisco. So those could be two losses. They could end up with five losses. Miami lost, of course, on Monday night with the Will Levis led Tennessee Titans in a miraculous comeback in the last 2 or 3 minutes. I think they were the first team to lose in regulation a game where they were ahead by 14 or more points within the last 3 minutes of first team to lose in many years, because usually most teams would try to tie it, although the Titans went for the win when they went for two that one time. But so, if the Dolphins lose one more game, so they play Buffalo still, I think they play Dallas still, and they play Baltimore. So, but hopefully they beat Baltimore and lose to either Buffalo or Dallas, and then that would mean the Chiefs, if they went out, would be 12-5, and then the other teams would also have 5 or more losses, because the Jaguars also have 5 losses now, and even if they went out and the Chiefs went out, the Chiefs have the tiebreaker over them. The Chiefs have only lost 2 AFC games, so they have the tiebreaker over
everyone,
and head-to-head tiebreakers over Miami and Jacksonville. So, but they're also only one game ahead now in the division over the Broncos, which is a little scary. Given I think the Chiefs aren't really in danger of missing the playoffs, but there are several 7-6 teams on the outside looking in right now, so it's a lot of chaos in the AFC playoff race.
Yeah, well, and so 3 of the division teams lost, as did the 6, 7, and 8 seeds as of right now. Anyway, also lost. So 6 of the top 8 teams in the AFC lost, and then 6 of the top 10 seeds in the NFC actually lost, but only one division leader. But the 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10 seeds all lost in those current positions anyway.
Yeah, current position. Yeah,
so it was a real bloodbath in the league. Yeah, a real bloodbath amongst the top contenders for playoff spots. Do you think that looks bad for the league, or do you think that the league doesn't care? Everybody's watching it anyway.
I think they want teams battling for playoffs all the way to the end. So then they want as many teams as possible to be contenders all the way up to the end. And so I think they're getting just what they wanted, which is a kind of parity among the teams in a very competitive league where you don't have a lot of 16-1 teams and 1-16 teams, or you have more. Everyone's between 12-5 and 5-12 at the end. You probably want, or although
do you think it's strange the last time that we had one of these like really unpredictable weeks was in week 7? So we've had week 7 and week 14, both were sort of crazy blowout weird games, upset games.
So you're expecting week 21, which would be
the AFC NFC championship game.
AFC championship game would be wacky.
Yeah.
I don't know about the pattern. I think it's a coincidence.
It's really just the second time this season that's happened, and it happened that it's in week 7 and week 14. Coincidence? Yeah, I think so. I think it's just a coincidence.
I think it's just a coincidence. I don't think there's anything else to it. But it's one of those things that happens every once in a while, and maybe hopefully, at least for the Chiefs' sake, the Chiefs it can happen again, but the Chiefs will avoid being the team that gets upset during one of those weeks if it happens again between now and week 18. The Chiefs. Do you think the defense I think played really better than they did against Green Bay? The offense didn't look great again.
It looked okay at times, but then they still had drive stall, and they still had, a kind of a random fumble and a weird interception, and they got behind early. That was the big thing, was that they gave up 14 quick points and
Yeah,
play out of the hole. But, they aren't, horribly uncomfortable in those scenarios. We've seen them come from bad deficits before, so it's not the end of the world to get behind by 14 points, but
yeah.
you still don't want to see them do it.
Patrick Mahomes' record of when he's behind double digits is he was well over 500, but now he's getting closer and closer to 500. Hopefully that will change if the Chiefs get down again. But yeah, were there any other games that you found interesting, or do we want to talk about our bets for this past week?
I think, yeah, interesting. There's a lot of very like unpredictable things that happened. Like the Jets scored 30 points. New England figured out how to win a game. Those things were all like very strange.
We're strange. Yeah,
Because
New England.
The Giants, like, ended up winning a game. That's yeah, maybe the Tommy DeVito effect. Uh yeah, it wasn't just like the teams were winning, but like we're like, doing things that we're very unaccustomed to seeing, like the Jets scoring 30 points in a game. Like they've had like a very anemic
Yeah,
offense. Now,
destroying the Houston
right.
Texans, who were thought to be a team on the rise.
Mm,
Yeah. So the New England beat Pittsburgh 21-18. Those 21 points were scored very quickly in the first half, and then of course they didn't score any in the second half. But
right.
it seems like Bailey Zappi may be the quarterback now in New England, just as we had predicted. Because
Particularly you, but yes.
well, yeah, because I dislike McCorkle, Mac Jones. I don't think he's a very good quarterback. He's not any better than Zappi is anyway. He just happens to have a more of a pedigree than Zappi has. But I think his teammates like Zappi better than they like Mac Jones.
Seems
And yeah, and we had a couple of the Chicago, I think, beating Detroit so handily was another kind of
makes no
crazy
sense.
upset. So they won 28-13. Um,
That was one of my picks, so we can if you want to just roll that into this
yeah, well, we
anymore.
already talked about one of my picks already. I had the Chiefs winning by 1.5, and they lost, of course, by 3. Had they had that pass counted, probably they would have covered the spread, because then Buffalo would have needed a touchdown in the last minute rather than unlikely they would have tried to kick a field goal to only lose by 1 point that game. So
Right.
I maybe under Sean McVay, maybe they would have kicked a quick field goal and then an onside kick to try to kick another field goal
Yeah.
In very short succession. But
No.
It was this was a not a good game for me. I was trying to stick with Kansas City because they had lost I picked them over Green Bay. This is the first time I picked Kansas City this season as one of my bets. 2 weeks ago against Green Bay. Then last week I picked them to beat Buffalo, just to try to not abandon the Chiefs just because they
Yeah.
lost one. And this week I'm going to pick them in another way. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, so I picked the Chiefs -1.5. So that was my first loss of the week. Neither of us did terribly well on the locks.
No.
I was 0-2-1, and were you 1-2?
1-2.
So we were 1-4 and 1. I am
Yes.
0-5-1 in my last 6, so I'm really sunk like a stone these last couple of weeks. Hopefully I can turn it around, but
After
you
having built up a pretty good advantage even too, and then
yeah,
it
they
just
just
evaporated very quickly in 2 weeks.
yeah, because I had been at least building it steadily. I've been getting a lot of 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, and
Um,
building up. Then whoosh, 0-3, 0-2-1. So you had what was your Detroit bet?
I had Detroit -3 at Chicago, and yeah, Chicago ended up winning, yeah, 28-13. Yeah, Detroit fully flat, essentially on their
They've been
offensive
flat a couple of
ability.
times on the road. That Ravens game is a little bit like that. So they've been known to lay some eggs, and you wonder if Detroit um can keep up with the real top dogs in the NFC, which is Dallas and San Francisco and Philadelphia. Detroit seems like they've really slotted in as probably the 4th best team at best in the
Yeah.
NFC.
Well, and giving up 28 points to the Bears is a little surprising too. It's like doesn't look great for their defense. The Bears offense hasn't been terribly good most of the season either. So either this was just a total like fluke of a week and everybody could just write this one off, or it could be a sign that they're going the wrong direction headed into the playoffs, which is a little
Yeah.
worrisome.
Speaking of Dallas and Philadelphia, I was my second bet. I thought Dallas was going to win, but I did not bet Dallas at -3.5. I decided to bet the over under instead. I thought it was going to be a high scoring game because Dallas scores a lot of points. Philadelphia, I thought, would score a decent number as well, but the over under was a pretty high over under 51.5. It ended up being 33-13 Cowboys over the Eagles, so only 46 total points. So I would have needed another touchdown from one of the sides. So not too far off, but I was on the wrong side of the over under in Dallas.
It's just, really the surprise was that Philly wasn't able to score really much. They only had 13 in the game. Is that what it was?
13, yeah, touchdown, 2 field goals. So it
That's a
was,
really low output for a team that's been able to score pretty well against just about everybody.
and the team and Dallas gives up points sometimes. They have a good defense, but it's a big play kind of defense rather than a stifling defense.
Yes. Right.
And
Right.
they gave up 36 just last week before to Seattle, and Seattle's not really known for its offense in the way that Philadelphia is. So
Right.
it was a little strange, but that's that's the way the cookie crumbled in Dallas.
Philly's had a couple of bad games in a row now too, and it's maybe they're looking a little more concerned about their position because they've lost their division lead now also, and
Would you be more
they're
concerned?
relegated to a wild card spot as of now.
Yeah, exactly. Are you more concerned if you're the Eagles or the Chiefs?
I mean, I don't think either of them are concerned about losing their being in the playoffs,
I
but
think Philadelphia's already qualified. I think they
yeah,
clinched last week.
and I think the Chiefs are at something like 98% chance of making the playoffs. So it'd be pretty tough for them to be out. Yeah, I don't think they're worried about either of them are worried about making the playoffs. Maybe partly because Philly's possibly already in. But I don't know. Maybe they actually feel better about playing some of the games as not being the favorite even in some cases. So maybe I don't know. It seems like the Chiefs prefer to be more of an underdog, even though they can't be really classified as an underdog at any point. So I don't know. I'm not worried about either of them as of now, but Philly maybe gotten blown out a couple times. The Chiefs can at least say like, oh, their drops, their penalties have been weird, like the officiating's not been great. Philly just got beat.
Yeah,
That's a little more worrisome. Do you agree with that, or is that
I
different
I
thought on this?
I would say that, yeah, because Philadelphia's been beaten badly by the two top teams in the conference. They lost badly at home to the 49ers, and they lost badly on the road to the Cowboys. They had beaten the Cowboys earlier at home, but that was a very close game. So it seems like the Cowboys right now seem to be a better team, and so do the 49ers. So it's I would, in some ways, I would be more disappointed as a Chiefs person, because you think, oh, the Chiefs squandered more of their chances. I would be more worried maybe in Philadelphia, because maybe they don't have what they had last year, which was, they lost their coordinators. They lost their defensive coordinator who became Jonathan Gannon, became the coach in Arizona, and Shane Steichen, the offensive coordinator, became the coach in Indianapolis. So they've lost their coordinators. I guess the Chiefs lost one coordinator last year, Eric Bieniemy, but which may be the reason why the Chiefs haven't done as well. I think, but maybe those are reasons. But yeah, I guess I would be more worried. If I were, I guess if the Chiefs lose another game, maybe it's the Chiefs. But I think as of now, even though the Chiefs did lose to Philadelphia, it was one of those things like in the last game, it's like the Chiefs lost more than the Eagles won. I think the Chiefs lost this game more than the Bills won it. I think the Chiefs also lost. Maybe Green Bay, you could say, won it just as much as the Chiefs lost it, because they played really well. But still, it could have been one play here or there would have changed everything. So
yeah, frustrating.
There, yes. What about your second?
Second game was another frustrating game, which we talked briefly about already. It was the Jets scoring 30 points against Houston. I had Houston minus 3.5, and they weren't anywhere close to that. Ended up dropping the game by 24 points. CJ Stroud actually left the game with a concussion after being not good at all, I guess, really, for most of the game. It was only 91 passing yards. Was sacked a couple times too. So now, that's going to be, Houston's probably a team that's more worried about their playoff potential, especially if CJ Stroud's going to be forced to miss any time, which we don't at this point know. I believe he's in concussion protocol, so we'll have to see how he progresses through that.
Even one game can cost you, though, and because if there's that logjam at 7-6, and you feel like, oh, if you're the Bills right now, or if you're the Bengals right now, you have to feel better than you did a couple of weeks ago. And going into the season, I think everybody thought the Bills and Bengals were two of the top teams, and if they're battling for wild card spots against the likes of Indianapolis or Denver or Cleveland and teams like that are seen as not as good, so you have to feel, or Houston, those are the teams that you would probably worry about, because there aren't going to be those free spots anymore, because these teams that we thought were maybe to be counted out have turned it around, and they're two of the scarier teams in the conference, if not the whole league. So
Pittsburgh too probably is in that group, I think.
Yeah. In the not so good group.
But they're a contender because they have won quite a few games. But
so you think maybe there's only,
they don't seem like they're that good of a team.
Yeah, you might think, well, there's only one spot then for a not very good team in the AFC. If you think that Cincinnati and Buffalo are turning it around well enough that they're going to finish 10-7 at least, that means one of those other teams is probably, it's a couple of those other teams that we're thinking, oh, we're in the playoffs ahead because Buffalo has blown these games and Cincinnati lost Joe Burrow. The Chiefs are a game up far enough, and I think people thought the Chiefs were going to be better. They do have to play Cincinnati, but even if they lose that game, they're still going to be in the playoffs most likely.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where I think some of those mid-season Cinderellas are maybe not looking quite as rosy as they did a couple of weeks ago because of the looming preseason contenders that are finally getting their bearings. So speaking of not so rosy games, my third bet was actually the rosiest of all of them because at least I got a push.
Slightly rosier, at least.
But it was the Vikings Raiders game. The Vikings were at the Raiders. The Vikings were 3-point favorites on the road. I thought the Raiders should have been the favorites in that game, so I bet that game thinking that the Raiders would likely win. But they could. You can't win when you don't score any points. Fortunately for the Raiders, the Vikings almost didn't score any points either, but it was a 3-0 victory, the lowest scoring game in 10 years in the NFL, something like that. Maybe 15 years. It was 2007. Maybe it was the last 3-0 game. I can't remember what. Is it?
Oh, I don't think I looked at that. I looked at the last time that there was a 0-0 finish was like pre-NFL. What now constitutes the NFL, the old NFL.
2007 was the first. It was the first 3-0 game since Pittsburgh beat Miami in 2007. The third in the last 40 years.
I think it was like the first time in 6 years, I think, that they'd had teams enter the fourth quarter at 0-0, which is still quite a long time for that to have happened even. So that's really a surprising score.
So we've had a 6-0 game and a 3-0 game the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, you have to think too, like, if the Raiders managed to get a safety, they could have actually covered the spread with a 3-2 score, right?
That would have been wonderful, but last that didn't happen. So at least it was a push. So I didn't lose that game. So that could come into play down as the season goes on, because I believe last year our betting was decided by you had a push and I had a loss. So I ended up losing by half a game. So now I am, maybe that half game will help me. So I didn't. Awesome. I only lost $200 this week rather than $300.
Yes.
But you won your game. You won your
final. I did get my final pick. I had the Rams and Ravens over 40.5 points. I thought this was likely to be a shootout, and it actually was. Ravens ended up winning 37-31 in a overtime punt return touchdown.
Amazing.
Well, they had already more than covered the over at that point. So 68 points was the final. So full 4 touchdowns over the over under number. Not too risky in that one. So so I ended up 1-2 this week, down $100.
I was 0-2-1, down 200. Where do we stand on the year?
So on the year now, I am 22-20, up $200 on the season. You were at 20-21 and 1, down $100. So a $300 gap between us,
which can be made up as we've had in 1 week, one good week.
It only takes 1 week,
or a good week for me and a bad week from you. Basically, is what it would take.
That's a pretty rough week overall for us, because we've been doing quite well with these games in general. And
these past 2 weeks have just been I've lost $500 these past 2 weeks. So I was sitting relatively pretty, but now I am down, and it turned out to be again a little bit of the opposite in our on our big board. We both ended up losing money, but I ended up losing only $150 or so. You ended up losing over $1,000.
Yeah,
over 100 in our fake money. So we kind of switched places this week.
Yeah, I'm still up about almost $2,300 on the season.
Yeah, you're still up about 8,000, 9,000 on me. I made up $1,000 ground though, even though I still lost a little bit of money. So there's still a chance, at least for me, to make it more respectable as time goes on. We still have weeks 15 through 18, so we have 4 more games.
4 more full slates too. So these will be all 16 games every week. More chances for you to mount that comeback, Mike.
Yeah, so I feel okay about that. Ideally, you think, well, as the season goes on, the team's better and you know what's going to happen, but it doesn't seem like that's been the case this year in the NFL. So
in certain weeks anyway that are divisible by 7 apparently.
Yeah, or just the last 2 weeks for me. So I was doing well, then I've taken a nosedive. Maybe hopefully that I can pull out of that nosedive
Yeah,
getting in week 15. We'll talk about our week 15 picks in a bit, but do you want to talk a little bit about baseball?
let's do it.
We have some big news. Probably the biggest news around baseball was the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes, where the Dodgers ended up winning that, signing him for 10 years, $70 million per year on average. So he's 10 years, $700 million contract. And do you
Well,
think
normally that would be 70 million a year, but that, I don't think it's how they actually structured the contract, though, from what it sounded like. Is it seems like
so?
he's
This
only going to be taking $2 million a season and deferring $68 million a year until the 10 years following his contract.
until
So
2034 or 2044, I guess it would be.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a
pretty
lot of
crazy.
deferrals. I guess you think, well, maybe the Dodgers can get even more great players between now and then and get more championships. Do you think Otani is worth all that money? Or is he going to have a Pujols-esque decline after
Yeah.
signing a
Well,
contract?
so we already know he won't live up to the full salary his first season because he won't be pitching
Mhm.
because he's going to be sitting out, I believe, the whole year from pitching duties while his arm is healing from his most recent, like I guess, hybrid UCL surgery.
Yeah,
'Cause it wasn't quite the full
I don't think it was
UCL.
Tommy John, but it was something
Yeah.
similar.
So it's a different type of procedure, I guess, that may not have quite the impact on his playing ability. At least it allows him to hit during the season. So we know, he's not going to be at full strength and he's not going to be playing 2 ways, which is where his full value comes from. So you know, that first year is a little bit of a write off, I guess. But I don't know. That team's going to be really tough to beat. What's as strong as they already were, then adding Ohtani, they have to be, you'd think, at least perennial NL pennant seekers, at least, right?
Well, you also, I guess, would have thought that though with the Angels, though they would have been, they have Mike Trout, who is the, if not the best, the second best player after Ohtani in the league, and
Yep.
they couldn't do anything with Trout. So hopefully, at least for Ohtani's sake, he's not a jinx in the way that maybe Trout has proven to be, unfortunately. Uh,
Yeah.
the Angels,
But the Dodgers were already a playoff team, and they were already like fighting for World Series appearances every season.
yeah, that's true.
So the addition of Ohtani seems almost cruel to the rest of the division. Ugh.
It seemed like the Giants also put a big offer in. Maybe the Blue Jays were also contenders in the Ohtani sweepstakes, but yeah, it was the Dodgers. He ends up staying in Los Angeles. Maybe he can stay. He can still live in his own house.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the main reason he signed again with the Dodgers. But yeah, so the Royals also signed some free agents. Not as big as not splashes nearly as big as Ohtani, but they signed um 3 players in just over the last couple of days. All pitchers, Chris Stratton, Seth Lugo, and former Royals prospect slash young maybe player in the making, Will Smith, once a former All-Star closer. Do you think those 3 guys can help? I think Stratton's probably going to be in the bullpen. Lugo is going to be a starter, and Smith in the bullpen. Do you think that will help shore up the Royals' poor pitching staff?
I think it's probably an improvement in it. I mean, with at least 2 of those players over who they have currently in those sort of roles. I'm not sure about Lugo though. Like he'd done all right the last couple seasons. It seems like he was a reliever converted back into a starter most recently. But I don't know that he's really going to be much different than like the Lyles type on paper. And
Yeah, they're
Lyles had a disastrous season with the Royals, in 2023. So I'm not sure what to expect with it. I'm trying to keep my expectations extremely low. then be pleasantly surprised if they do even okay. I think that's I think as a Royals fan that should be kind of the goal for this season.
Yeah, these pitchers are all, I guess, veterans. So you might think
Yeah,
that's they're also 33 years old or older. I think Stratton's 33, Lugo and Smith are both 34. So, they're younger than we are. I think we are both. I just turned 45 on Monday, so
happy birthday.
45.
I should have led the show with that. I wasn't even thinking about that. Should have done that.
Yeah, well, we can. Well, we'll lead into our last segment talking about how old I am. But
Yes.
we are. So it feels funny talking about people being old who are more than a decade younger than we are.
Right.
It's in the back of our heads.
It had to happen eventually.
Every American male still thinks that they could perhaps have a major league baseball career or be in the NFL because they think, oh, if certain things broke my way, we could still do that. We have that sort of male fantasy. I don't know if
It
you
can
do.
happen.
Yeah.
Are you saying it can't happen? What are you talking about?
It's not going to happen, especially now. Maybe 10 years ago, since we were only 35, since there are players older than us in the league now. So especially since Tom Brady retired, nobody is older than us in any of the professional sports.
Golf, probably.
Jaromir Jagr. Well, Tiger Woods, if he wins another major, maybe you could think, okay, I could be a golfer, um, but I don't think that's going to happen either.
It's unlikely.
Hopefully, yeah. So maybe the Royals. I think it seems like the Royals were really trying to look forward to, if not this year, the year after 2025. So maybe I think Lugo's a 3-year contract, 15 million a year. I think Stratton and Smith are they also multiple year contracts?
The Smith contract, I believe, was just a 1-year, $5 million deal. And I'm not sure about the Stratton deal. I hadn't seen the numbers on that one yet. So I'm not sure what. It's probably close to the Will Smith deal, would be my assumption.
Yeah. Stratton, at least as of now, they don't have Stratton will because 8 million over 2 years with an opt out after the first. So if he doesn't, I guess if he does very, very well, he might not want to. He might want to go for more money. So
Yeah. So yeah, $4 million guarantee according to MLBTradeRumors.com.
Yeah, so 2 years, 8 million, but he can leave after one if he wants more money and he thinks he can get more money. So, but it seems like they're trying to at least be competitive next year from a pitching standpoint.
Which was by far their weakest spot on the portion of the team was the bullpen and the starting rotation.
Yeah, Reagan's was the lone bright spot really
But he was somebody they kind of lucked out on. Like they only ended up with him because Texas didn't have room for him in their giant roster that they'd constructed over the course of the season. So, benefited the Royals nicely to have them, lose faith in him and enough to get rid of him. Well, they cut him loose anyway. So,
yeah. Well, and we still have no movement. It doesn't seem like there's much movement on the Royals Stadium front either. So maybe we can leave the hot stove simmering while we go back to football. And this is going to be week 15. The Chiefs play New England. Do you have any predictions in the Chiefs New England game? It was supposed to be on Sunday night, but
Monday night. It was supposed to be the Monday night game.
Monday night, but it was moved because nobody wants to watch. Well, maybe Bailey Zappi is a little bit more competitive than we thought, but the Chiefs got bumped to Sunday, the early Sunday afternoon slot, 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 Central. Do you have any predictions for the Chiefs Patriots?
Well, then the recipient of the Monday night slot probably looks a little bit worse after this last 2 weeks then too, is it not? The Philly.
Yeah, Phillies. Yeah. it's teams
In
fighting more
Seattle,
for
who Seattle had looked terrible the last couple of weeks.
it's teams fighting for their playoff lives rather than
Yeah,
against a strong team against a weaker team seeming. But
it is odd that it was like 2 weeks ago. This seemed like a no-brainer kind of move, and now it's like I don't know. It may be like a neutral, almost like a wash, switching of the Monday night performers. So it's kind
yeah,
of I mean, yeah. Hopefully, this is the Chiefs, not getting screwed by the officials and actually just deciding that they want to just win games and not worry about or leave anything to chance. That is what I'm hoping to see from them on the field this
yeah.
weekend.
You hope that they can put together a performance from the offense that's good and the defense that's good at the same time. Yeah, and so I'm maybe more wishful thinking than anything. So I ended up betting on the Chiefs game again this week. So I'm over 2, but I decided to move away from the Chiefs spread, which I think is 9.5 right now. The Chiefs are favored by 9.5 against New England. The over under is 37, and I actually went with the under in this game. I think the Chiefs will win, but I don't think the total score will be very high. So I'm thinking maybe it's a 24-10 type of game. Hopefully more like 28-3 type of game, but either way, it's under. And if it's 21-14, maybe it'll still be under. So I like the under here. I think it's more likely that New England won't score very many points. They did score 3 touchdowns against the Steelers last week, but they scored them all in the first half, and then they were shut out the rest of it. So maybe the Chiefs defense can shut down New England for 3+ quarters. So that's the under there.
And that was that Thursday night game too. So like, maybe it's actually the offenses that have a slight advantage on Thursday night, as opposed to what we've always sort of like been told or assumed that it was the
Or they
defense.
caught them by surprise at the beginning, and then Pittsburgh settled down.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I like under 37 for Kansas City, New England. Do you have a first lock of the week that you are confident in?
Confident, less confident than I was before. Anyway, but my first lock of the week is also an over under number. I'm looking at the Bears Browns game, which is also a noon game on Sunday. Over under number on that game is 37.5. It seems like both teams have actually been scoring a little bit more in the last couple of weeks. So I'm hoping to see that trend continue and hit the over in that game, over 37.5 points.
Over 37.5. I could see that. I'm going also over under my second pick. And that is, I'm going under again. This is San Francisco, Arizona. Their over under is 47.5. I think it's going to be. I think the game is going to be lower scoring than that. I think San Francisco might shut down Arizona mostly, and I don't think they'll score 47 points on their own. So I think this maybe would be like a 31-10 type of game, or a maybe 28-14 type of game. So both of those would be comfortably under the 47.5. I don't think Arizona's offense is better with Kyler Murray back, but I think San Francisco's defense is very strong, and I think the under, even if it's a little closer, I think it would probably be lower scoring than higher scoring. So maybe I think San Francisco's favored by about 2 touchdowns right now. Is it 13.5? Yeah, or
13.5.
13.5. So yeah,
and I know you like to also like to incorporate the distance traveled as being a factor. Not that far for San Francisco to travel to Arizona, though.
Yeah, it's not a drive you'd like to make, but it's a flight as far as flights go. It's not very far from California to Arizona. How long? This is the. How long do you think it would take to drive from San Francisco to Phoenix?
Like less than half a day, probably. Less than that, maybe even.
By half a day, do you mean 12 hours?
Yeah, well, I'll say less than 12 hours driving.
It's right. Google Maps tells me 11 hours and 49 minutes. So
Ooh, oh, that was a very close. line there too, like well
Yeah,
placed
yeah, you
for
were
betting
right.
purposes.
Over under 12 hours, that would have been it. And that's from San Francisco to Phoenix. I don't know about Santa Clara to,
Right.
or is it Tempe? Is that,
From stadium to stadium.
yeah. It's Glendale. Okay, let's go Santa Clara to Glendale.
Can you add 11 minutes just to make it trip the over on 12 hours?
It's actually a little shorter, 11 hours, 16 minutes. So
No.
a little more comfortable because Santa
Right.
Clara is kind of far south from San Francisco. So you're probably
Yeah,
outside all that traffic and stuff like that. So
maybe.
um, at least if you left right now, I guess it would be 11 hours, 16 minutes. So if you left, this is, it's currently about 8:30, almost 8:30 on the Pacific coast. So if you left about 3 hours ago, but it would have been a much different story probably. So
Right.
this is the time to drive right about now. So
No. Arizona is coming off their bye this week, though. But San Francisco also has been a juggernaut.
mm,
It'd be surprising if Arizona does much in this game, even with the extra prep time.
and I think if Arizona does well, it'll have to keep San Francisco from scoring a lot of points. I don't think Arizona's going to win a shootout. It was not going to be like a 31-28 game. I think it would be more
Yeah.
likely 20-17, maybe something like that, or 24-20 type of win for the Cardinals.
And you're fine with all of that.
And so, yeah, that's my guess. I don't know. Watch out now. It's going to be 34-31. One of the teams.
What you don't want to see is the 45-0 score with Arizona trying to kick a field goal just to like save face and not get shut out. That's the scenario that's the only one you really are concerned about, right? And that you don't want to see.
That would be the saddest of all. Speaking of sad, how about your second of the week?
So yeah, this is in more of trying to make sure to try to get one of these locks, not necessarily a sure thing, but as close to a sure thing as you can, even with all the uncertainty from the last week anyway. The one thing that does seem fairly certain is that Carolina is not winning games.
No.
Atlanta is a 3-point road favorite in Carolina this week, so I'm taking Atlanta with a 3-point edge here.
Yeah, it's hard to trust mediocre teams on the road, but
Yeah.
maybe if they're playing a team as bad as Carolina without, a coach really. And
Yeah.
so I could see that as being and probably and maybe Atlanta's coming off a loss. They're still challenging for the division, the NFC South division title. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that's a decent possibility. I don't yeah, it's one of those things I don't like. I don't like betting on necessarily on teams that I don't think are very good, but they're playing against a team that's all is below just not very good right now. They're clearly probably the worst team in the league this year. Um the Carolina Panthers, especially with New England winning last week and some of the
Yeah,
uh
some of the weaker teams getting wins this
yeah,
last. Looking for
Tennessee.
more looking for a little bit more certainty and
Yeah,
not seeing
Arizona.
it in a lot of places in the league right now.
Yeah, Arizona had a bye last week, but they didn't lose last week.
Yeah.
So
True.
yeah,
Can't take a
um,
loss in the week he didn't play.
no, and Arizona's been a lot better since Kyler Murray has returned. So I think yeah, it seems like Carolina's clearly the worst. And Chicago was one of the bad teams too, and they won last week. So yeah, some of these bad teams did fairly well. The Giants, of course, also won last week. Tommy DeVito, hey Tommy, he's been doing great. So I actually am betting on the Giants this week as my third lock of the week. The Giants are at New Orleans. They're 6-point underdogs on the road, and so I picked the Giants at +6 against New Orleans. I think I don't think they're necessarily going to win, but I think they can keep it close. Tommy DeVito has been kind of a feel-good story for Giants fans in a not very good feeling season. Technically, the Giants are still in the playoffs, and if they win out, they can be 9-8. So maybe they'll win against New Orleans. New Orleans has been kind of shaky the whole all season, so I think the Giants can keep it close in the dome. The weather's gonna be nice. Saquon Barkley's been doing well. I think DeVito maybe can at least continue his steady performance, and you never know what you're gonna get from the Saints. Is Jameis Winston gonna be the starter?
Oh, I don't even know I know that your former Bane, who is now no longer, I guess, in that position, uh, had been injured the last week and missed the most recent game, but they seem to do all right without him. Drawing a blank on his name. What is his name? Ty. Oh, Taysom Hill.
Hill, yeah.
Yeah.
You forgot our friend Taysom Hill. Yeah, so I think Hill has been he's moved from my least favorite player list to like a person that I have no ill will towards. I think right now Michael McCorkle Jones is my least favorite player.
Yeah.
At least out since Deshaun Watson is injured, and maybe since Aaron Rodgers is kind of injured too. So right now it's McCorkle.
It looks like Carr played the last game.
Yeah, he got into an altercation, I think, with one of his linemen. There was a lot of infighting, so maybe Saints are maybe not focused on the upcoming game, and maybe are just trying to keep from falling apart. So maybe that helps me. That makes me even a little bit more confident in the Giants' ability to keep it close. They've played better the last few weeks, and DeVito is a I don't know what this means for Daniel Jones's future, but it seems like if DeVito can play adequately, it's it's a good thing for the Giants. How about your third and final lock of the week, Dr. Scout?
So my last lock, I'm going to the Monday night game. I'm really expecting to see Philly bounce back from their current 2-game losing streak. They're playing in Seattle Monday night. They're favored by 3.5 points. I expect to see Philly take this by probably a touchdown, if not more. Seattle's been scoring a little bit more, but I don't think they're that good of a team really right now, and they seem to be maybe on their decline, probably on their way out. This would be my guess for the playoffs this season. Yeah, so I'm going to take Philly, assuming Philly will be riding the ship, I guess, is for my third and final pick this week.
That's one of, I think, several fairly attractive games this week. We start out with some games on Saturday. I think all three of the Saturday games are interesting because we have playoff contenders for, I think, all 6 of the teams playing are playoff contenders. We have Minnesota at Cincinnati, Pittsburgh and Indianapolis, and then Denver at Detroit. None of those teams are world beaters, I don't think, but I think they're all decent. So we can get some good games on the Saturday, December 16th. I don't know where my if I had to just pick, I would say money line. I would say Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, and maybe Denver in an upset over Detroit. That would be maybe where I would lean, but I'm not sure. But those would be good games. Also, the late one of the late games on the 2 late games on Sunday, 2 of the late games on Sunday, the Dallas at Buffalo, and then Baltimore at Jacksonville are going to be probably good games too, depending on who the quarterback is for Jacksonville. It's probably going to be Lawrence, but
seems like it would be Lawrence. That was pretty impressive that he played in the most recent game with the high ankle sprain, and then
they said mid ankle sprain. I guess
ankle sprain, yeah,
it wasn't high enough, so I guess that's better. But so there's quite a few good games on the slate, and you get that with all 16 matchups, and even some games that maybe seemed pretty bad last week are turning out to be a little bit better, like Tampa Bay Green Bay or Houston Tennessee, Jets Miami, Chicago Cleveland. There's the teams that were on the downs, that were on the downslope are are getting wins. So maybe, it might be a very competitive. Even Kansas City, New England probably falls into that. There's a lot of competitive looking matchups this week. So it's not like there's these titan. Maybe Dallas Buffalo is the clash of the Titans, but it's a good week overall, I think, on the schedule.
Maybe not quite as lopsided as some of the previous weeks have been with the huge spreads too. There's only one game with a 10+ point spread as of now.
Yeah, I guess Kansas City goes 9.5, and Jets are 8.5 point underdogs in Miami. So,
Yeah.
But there's a lot of close games. So this is going to be, I think, an interesting week to predict. I still don't know which way I'm going to go for most of these games, and we will have a couple days to decide. But we have our locks in. And do we want to talk? Do we have anything else to add this week?
I think efficiently went through our frustrations and our expectations for this coming week. Hopefully
We've
less
expressed our
frustration.
joys and concerns, as they say. I don't know who says that, but I think somebody says joys and concerns. Anyway, we are joyous that you have decided to watch and or listen to the Warning Track Power Hour. We are concerned, however, about our picks over the past couple of weeks, and our maybe what's coming up this week. We aren't sure how well those will do. We're cautiously optimistic, perhaps at best, right now. But we hope you're at least cautiously optimistic about your picks for this week and for your team's chances in the next several weeks as we get closer and closer to playoff football. And it's an exciting time of year to be an NFL fan, and it's even with some of the issues with officiating and just general incompetence that we sometimes see out there on the field. It's still the best time of the year, I think, for the NFL, also with the holiday season approaching. So it's a fun, festive, merry time for all of us. And from both of us here at the Warning Track Power Hour, we'll be interested in seeing how this turns out. So as always, I am Dr. Michael Werman, Esquire. He is Dr. Andrew Scaff, non-Esquire. We are the Warning Track Power Hour, half Esquire. And please like and subscribe, whether you're an Esquire or not, to our YouTube channel or our variety of podcast delivery systems, and you can find us there. So until next week, when we'll have another exciting Warning Track Power Hour, we will wish you a good day.